بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد. To continue in the study of تذكرة السامع والمتكلم of Ibn Jamaah rahimahullah, he mentions here point number 7 that if he attends the sitting of the teacher, he gives salams to those who are present or attending with a voice which all of them can hear. Now this, the author mentioned that when you enter a sitting of knowledge, that you give salam with a voice everyone can hear. And the scholars explain that if this is done by raising one's voice, then this is something which is not in accordance to manners. Rather, he gives a salam which is light and not too loud, whereas those who are close to him hear it. And there's not a must that all of them hear it. So one does not enter the sitting and he shouts and screams out the salam to make sure that everyone hears it. Rather, he gives a light salam to those close to him hear it, and he suffices with that, and it's not a must that everyone hears it. Then he says that he specifies the shaykh with an increase in the tahiyyah, in the giving the salams and honoring him, and then also he gives salams when he leaves the sitting. So here is a point that the salam is done in the beginning and at the ending of the class, in the beginning and the ending of the sitting. And this is from the sunnahs which are affirmed from the Prophet ﷺ. The salam is not only done when you enter, but rather when you exit as well. Then he says that some of them, meaning some of the fuqaha, the scholars of jurisprudence, have considered the sittings of knowledge, they've considered the sitting of knowledge to be a situation in which one does not give salam in. Meaning when he enters, he does not give salam. And this statement of fuqaha, some of them have increased upon that, and they mention up to 10 places where it's not recommended or one does not give a salam to an individual or individuals. So from those instances where they've mentioned that you should not give salam, some of them have said when you enter the sittings of knowledge, you do not give salam, and their point of view is that they are occupied with learning and studying and listening to the teacher. The author though mentions here that this is in opposition to that which the customs and the action is based upon. Meaning that this is in reality opposing the reality of the situation where people actually give salam when they enter. And then he says, but rather what is correct is that should be held in regards to the one who is alone and he is occupied memorizing his lesson or repeating it. I mean, he should not give this individual salams. Now here, where the author mentioned that this is in opposition to the customs and the actions of the people, and this is because the sharia or the legislation has commanded with spreading the salams, and has not specified, and we cannot specify that you do not give salam in this instance, except if we have an evidence for that, specifying the specific instance that salam should not be given here. And there's no proof to specify the sittings of knowledge from being given salam. I mean that there's no proof for us to say that when you enter a sitting of knowledge you don't give salams. Even that, let alone that, the one where he says, or the author mentions that you should not give salam to the individual by himself for repeating his lesson and he's occupied with it and repeating it. Then the Prophet ﷺ used to be given salams even in prayer. They would give him salams even while he was praying. And it is known that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna fi salati la shughlan," that in the prayer one is occupied and busy. But still we get from the sunnah that the one who is praying, the salam is given to him and he raises his hand to return the salam. If this is the case, then what about the one who is repeating his lesson or memorizing it? Even then it's permissible to give him salam. It's not something which is bad or wrong. It is not something which is not allowed. It is permissible. If it's permissible to give the one praying salam and he's occupied with his prayer and he's occupied with his connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is min babin awla, more suitable to give salam to the one who is sitting and occupied with his lesson. So in this case we get that it's okay to give salams in these instances, and it's not something which is dispraised or disliked. And this is mentioned because you find some individuals, they'll tell you in these places, don't give salams. enter the sitting and sit down and don't give salams. But as the author says, that this is in opposition to what the custom and the action is upon. Then he says, if you give salams, you should not walk over the necks of the people who are attending to get closer to the teacher, especially for the one whose status is not as such. I mean, he's not of high status. He says, rather he sits wherever he finds a seat. He sits wherever he is able to sit. As comes in the narration, he says. And that narration, the Muhakkik, Shaykh Abu Amr al-Hajuri mentions, the narration of Waqid al-Laythi, radiallahu anhu, of the three who entered into the sitting in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. One found a place in the sitting, he sat, the other one sat behind the sitting, another one left. That narration, which is well known. Then he says that, except if the teacher indicates, or the teacher indicates to him and to those in attendance that this person should proceed forward, or should come forward, or that his status is such that he should be sitting forward, or the people know, or the attendees know that the Shaykh wants him to sit forward, to come closer, then there's no problem with him walking through the people to get to his seat, or to get to his place of sitting. And he says he should not make anyone stand up from his sitting so that he may sit in his place. Should not make anyone stand up from his sitting so that he may sit in his place. Or he should not overcrowd someone on purpose so that maybe he moves. And this is important. You find these manners, many of the people, they don't pay concern or attention to these manners. They purposely go to a certain area of the sitting to make it crowded so the individual feels uncomfortable and moves. And this is wrong. And then he says, if he gives his seat to someone else, or his place of sitting to someone else, he should not accept it. The individual should not accept receiving this seat, except if there is a benefit and the people know that benefit of him taking that seat, and that they will benefit by way of it from him researching what the teacher due to him being closer to him, or maybe because he is older in age, or because he has much virtue and being upright. Now there comes a point of discussion that if someone stands up for you to take his seat, should you sit in that seat? Should you sit there, or should you not sit there? Now what is more appropriate, as Shaykh Salih al-Usaymi mentions, that he sits in that seat in which the individual stood up from. It comes from Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu in Sahih that if someone stood up for him from his sitting, he would not sit in that place. If someone stood up for him from his sitting, he would not sit in that place that he stood up from. As a form to teach the people manners, so that a person does not seek from others to stand up, rather they sit wherever they find an opening and sit. But if this manner is known with the people, that they don't try to make people stand up to take their seat, or that they know that they enter the city and they sit wherever it is possible, then in this case permissible to take the seat of the person, and there's no problem with that. Then he says, it is not befitting for anyone that he gives up his spot close to the teacher, except for the one who's more deserving of that, due to him being older in age, or due to his knowledge, or being upright. But rather he should be eager upon being close to the teacher. He should be eager upon being close to the teacher if he is not made stand up from due to the reason of those who are more noble than him. And he says, if the teacher is in the middle place, then the greatest or the most virtuous of the Jamaah they have more right to sit to his right and his left. And then he says, if he is sitting upon something where he is reclining upon it or submit to it, then those who are noble and of status, they also recline upon the wall close to the teacher, or they sit in front of him. I think the matter is that it's not something that one says, oh, but why does this individual get to sit there? The people are given their due right. Everyone is placed at their specific level and status. Islam gives everyone their due right. If this individual is older in age, then his right is given to him. If this individual is more knowledgeable and has virtue, then his right is given to him. Yes, if you take in a seat and there's no one of that nature there, and the teacher does not indicate for you to move from that seat for anyone, you don't give up your seat. You sit in that seat close to the teacher. But if there's someone an individual comes in there, and example, maybe another sheikh that comes, and him sitting close to the teacher, there's a great benefit in that, where they could do munaqasha, debating an affair, and to correct the teacher if something occurs or mistakes or like that. Then the benefit is there and is present. That him being close to the teacher is more beneficial than someone who may be a beginner. So this, everyone is given their due right, and their status are given their due right. He said the customs have come to. The customs are known that in the sittings of where the teacher is teaching, that those who are more strong in knowledge, they sit in front of the teacher, or those who will teach the class after the teacher. Meaning, there are some individuals after the class will be done, they will sit down with the students and repeat the class of the teacher for them. And this type of individual also sits in front of the teacher. Or he says if a guest comes, he sits to the right or the left. And he said it is befitting for Arufaqa, those who are studying together, meaning they are partners in studying, in a specific class, that they all gather together in a specific area of that class, so that the teacher can look at all of them whilst teaching. Meaning that if it is a specific group of brothers that are studying together, that they don't sit far away from each other. They sit in a specific area so that the teacher can look at them while he's teaching them, and does not have to keep looking left and right, to forward and back, to try to get everyone's attention. Rather, they sit in an area where it is easy for him to look at them all at once when he's teaching. Then he says, point number 8, that you must have manners with those who are present in the sitting of the teacher. For indeed, you having manners with them is honoring the sitting, and they are his companions, so you honor his companions, and you honor those who are older in age, and those who are his classmates. And you do not sit in the middle of the circle. You do not sit in the middle of the circle. And here it comes a narration of the Prophet ﷺ cursed the one who sits in the middle of the circle. But the narration is extremely weak. The narration is weak, but it is in opposition to manners, the correct manners. For the correct manners is that you sit in the circle. If you're not able to find a spot within the circle, then you sit behind the circle, as comes in the narration of the three who entered the masjid. The second one sat behind the sitting. We do not sit directly in the middle like that. Then he says, nor do you sit in front of anyone except due to a need. You do not sit in front of one except if there is a need for that. Example, if the space is tight, you sit in front of someone. And this is what they mentioned, because the Prophet said, وَلَا تَدَابَرُوا, means do not give someone your back, as someone mentioned, that this falls into it. This falls into it. And they say that the Arabs, they used to, from the custom of the Arabs, is that they used to see that someone giving their back to you as something of belittling you. As belittling you. So to give your back to someone is not praiseworthy. So Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen used this hadith, وَلَا تَدَابَرُوا, even after Salah. You find that some brothers, when they finish a prayer and they're doing adhkar, they move up a bit. And now the other brother is a bit behind him. So he has now given him his back. Shaykh Uthaymeen also used this hadith, وَلَا تَدَابَرُوا, to show that you should not be doing that. You should not give your back to your brother like that. Rather, you sit in the same saf and you do your adhkar. You do not move forward and give your back to your brother. So this is something from manners, that you do not do so. Except if there's necessity, such as the sittings of the reading the narrations. And you should not split between two brothers, or two brothers who are together, who are companions. Nor you should not do that except if they give you their permission. If both of them give permission. You should not split between them except if both of them give permission. And you should not sit closer than the one who is more befitting than you to be sitting closer. You should not sit closer than the one who is more befitting than you to be sat closer. And then he says, befitting for those who are present and attending, if someone comes, that, or someone new comes, that they greet him and they make space for him, and that they spread out for his reason, and that they honor him with that which he is deserving of. And if there is some form of hardship in spreading out the sitting for him, they get closer together. They make themselves get closer. And this is something which is praiseworthy when someone else comes, maybe someone who is new, that you honor him. And as some of the mashayikh, they mention that this is something very praiseworthy. Someone new comes, you greet him, you smile with him, you honor him, you invite him to the further classes to come. Perhaps this may be a door, this may be a reason for what opens for him, the doors of knowledge. It may open from the doors of knowledge where he likes the way he was treated. It was warm. It was warm. The treatment was warm to him, and he liked it, and it made him feel very welcome. In this case, it's something praiseworthy, whereas it might encourage him to come more, and it might open the doors of knowledge for him. So something which is praiseworthy, actually, it would not be looked down upon. And he says that you should not spread out and not give anyone space. You should not spread out so much that you do not give anyone space. You should not give anyone your back. You should preserve yourself from that. And you should pay attention at the time of the teacher when he's researching. And do not harm your neighbor, whereas you raise your elbow to his side. So these are manners which are important, that you do not harm your neighbor in the sitting, and you pay attention to making sure that when you are in these sittings, that they are sitting on knowledge, that you honor them, and that you sit with manners. And it says you should not speak during the class. You should not speak during someone else's lesson. What he intends by this someone else's lesson is in that time they would come to the teacher and they would read upon the teacher. The teacher explained to that student or a group of students, the class. So he's saying if it is their turn, you do not speak. But similarly, you should not speak even during the class. If everyone is attending one class, you should not be speaking in the class. You should not speak in the class, or you should not say something which cuts off the research of the teacher. If some of them have started their lesson, you should not speak with speech which is concerning the lesson which has finished. Like we mentioned that they would sit. So for example, if someone is sitting and reading to the teacher Kitab al-Tawheed, and another group is sitting to read to him Bulugh al-Maram, when the sitting of the Kitab al-Tawheed finish, you do not start speaking amongst yourself regarding the lesson that was just finished. Except if the teacher permits. And the individual who was reading upon the teacher permits that. And then he says, if some of the students, they have bad manners, they show bad manners towards other than them, you should not stop him, you should not prevent him from that, except that the teacher should prevent him. I mean, no one should precede the teacher in doing that, stopping him, except if the teacher indicates towards that, or if it is something which is private between them by way of advice. And he says if anyone, though, has bad manners towards the teacher, then it is a must upon the group to stop him from that and reject that upon him, and aid the teacher with that which is needed, to basically give the teacher his right. And none should speak against a group, especially speaking against the teacher in this case. Now this is done if the teacher is harmed in this way, then it is done with manners. If it is just a word that to be said to him, example, brother, stop, and he stops that, that's enough. It should not be taken further where there is more speech occurring. Rather, it is done with that which is needed only. If light words are needed for the individual to stop attacking the teacher, it is sufficient. If it is needed that the individual be removed from the lesson, then some brothers do it and remove him from the lesson. But it shouldn't be where it causes so much commotion and causes everyone to speak regarding it and everyone to get up. No, it is done in a way that it is the intent is reached. I mentioned a story one day, and you find that this, if it's not only even from the students, you find that the awam, with those who they study with or those who they deem to be teachers, and may Allah forgive us for our shortcomings. This is just an example I'm giving. One day I was teaching in a lesson, and it came to the point of wudu, in which some of the scholars they mentioned that one does not take new water for their ears. I mean, they wipe their head with the same water that they wipe their ears with the same water they wipe their head with. That's the point Ibn Qayyim mentioned, that it's not from the Sunnah to take new water for the ears. And other scholars they mentioned this as well. We're mentioning the statements of the scholars. And one of the individuals in the class, he got up and he started to scream and shout and say, this is wrong what you're saying, and how could you say it's not allowed, and how could you say that the scholars mentioned this? And I said to him, brother, this is what the scholars mentioned. And he continued with what he was saying. And one of the general folk, he got up and he gave him some harsh words and he kicked him out of the lesson. And I said, subhanallah, it didn't need that much to go that far. But he said that, just showing the point that you find that even with the awam, let alone some of the students, the status of the one teaching in front of them, even if they're not at that level, and we're not at that level that to be defended like that, but just showing that the status of them, deeming them high, is something which is in their hearts, and they love the one who is teaching them. So when I asked him, why did you do it as such? He said, if you are the teacher, he has no right to speak in those words. If you are sitting here and teaching, he has no right to attack you. And I will defend the teacher if anyone attacks the teacher. And I said, subhanallah. So this shows that this point that the author is mentioning, it occurs from the attendees, even if some of those who know these manners or don't know them, is going to occur. But it should be done in accordance to the need of it. Once the need is met, or the intent is met, from there it is not continued. So it does not cause commotion or much talk and speech. If it is done with a few words, it is settled and that's it. But the teacher's right should be protected, and he should be given his rights and supported in these situations. And you find some of the teachers, it occurred to them that Shaykh Muhammad Aman al-Jami rahimahullah, from what I think, from him when he was about to be attacked by the Asha'ira, and under this, and as soon as they defended him, and others teachers also have the same stories, and you can find the audios online of it, where they're almost attacked by people. So it's important that if something like this occurs, in accordance to the intent of what is needed, for the intent to be met, the teacher is supported. And the teacher is not left alone. Rather, the teacher is supported, and the transgressor, or the one attacking the teacher, is stopped. If he has a question, he asks a question with manners. If he has a point to make, he raises his hand and makes a point with manners. But he does not disrespect the teacher and the honor of the teacher like that. So he supported. He said that from some of the wise people, they said, from the manners is that you do not speak at the time when another man is speaking, even if you are more knowledgeable than him regarding that topic. And he said, Al-Khatib, he mentioned a line of poetry in this regard. He said, وَلَا تُشَارِكْ فِي الْحَدِيثِ أَهْلَهُ إِنْ عَرَفْتَ فَرْعَهُ وَأَصْلَهُ. Do not join the people in their speech, even if you know the subdivisions of it and the foundation of that knowledge. I mean, do not cut people off. If they're speaking regarding a topic, do not join in. Do not join in. Except, he says, if you know that the teacher allows you to join in, or the one speaking asks the question allows you, then there's no problem. And he says, we have discussed that before in the previous lesson. So these are important matters that we must pay attention to. And then next week, inshallah, he'll discuss the topic of not being shy to ask regarding that which you need to ask about. So inshallah, we'll continue with that next week and stop with this. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.